Hello, this is Jer. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included. In this episode, I'm going to get the not okay but pretty cool achievement. And that requires me to cool a building down to 6 degrees Kelvin. Alright, which happens to be negative 267 Celsius. Freaking cold, basically. So, in the last episode, I got some graphite, which I need to make fluorine, which ultimately I need to make super coolant, which is going to be the key to getting this achievement. So I'm constructing over on the far right of my base a place to be able to cool off super coolant when I finally do produce it. And I'm going to run really cold super coolant through two different containers, one of oxygen and one of hydrogen. So I'm actually using them to build to fuel rockets, but I figured I might as well use the hydrogen one to get this achievement, the not okay but pretty cool. So let's see. The construction for this is taking a lot longer than normal, and that's because there's no local materials for my dupes to grab. They also have to run from far distance from the center of the base. So to help that a little bit, I've given everyone strong carrying abilities and running abilities. So let me explain how this works in a little more detail. I've got two liquid reservoirs. Those are each going to be filled with half a tank of super coolant. I've got two because I want to set a different temperature to each. The one that's going to cool hydrogen has to be a little bit colder than the one that's going to cool down oxygen. Alright, so what's going to happen is the moment the super coolant leaves that tank in a pipe, I'm going to take its temperature, and if it needs to be cooled, the liquid shutoff will open up and send it into a thermo aqua tuner and essentially cool it off. And then, of course, those aqua tuners itself will get really hot, so they're in a body of water, ultimately going to be turning to steam. So I've got steam turbines sitting above it, ready to keep those systems cool. Then from there, it's just a matter of pumping that cold liquid super coolant into each of the two respective containers, one for oxygen, one for hydrogen at the bottom. And I've got a pump, so when it finally cools the hydrogen and oxygen down, I can pump it and use it for my rocket. And of course, my expectation is I've got in the hydrogen, because that one's going to be colder, I'm going to temporarily make it excessively colder, even colder than it needs to be, just so I can get that building. And I believe I can get the pump that I'll count as a building. If I can cool that itself way down, I'll get my achievement, and then I'll turn the temperature back up such that it's still freezing liquid to or hydrogen to liquid, but not the excessive amount necessarily for just this particular achievement. Anyway, that is my plan, and let's go ahead and see how this whole thing turns out. While that's being constructed, I might as well create super coolant. I'm going to need sulfur, aluminum, petroleum, gold, and graphite. So in the previous episode, I got my graphite, and I'll need to produce a little bit of gold. Petroleum, I just need to push into a liquid reservoir and destroy it, and then I'll be able to access that. I need to get some aluminum ore from the world that I can teleport to produce aluminum, and I've got tons and tons of sulfur. So here I'm building some radiant pipes. It's going to carry the super coolant all the way around the two different containers, one for hydrogen, one for oxygen. So I send a dupe to this world via teleportation. And I may only have access to this because I have the forest biome trait on this world, and that has tons of aluminum ore. But anyway, this dupe is eating in bed. And I think this is actually the same dupe that did this before and a couple of episodes back. Every action they do, or most actions they do is eating. I don't understand. Anyways, move on. Here they are getting some aluminum in the forest biome at the bottom of the space. So I get it back in the home base, I need to turn that aluminum ore into aluminum and produce some gold as well. Build a little bit of automation around the molecular forge to automatically supply inputs to the machine. I was expecting the molecular forge to leak out super coolant underneath it, so I put in some mesh tiles. But then I realized the first time it produced it, it actually put it in a container, so I didn't have to do that. So instead I have a little spot to drop that off in the side with a pump, and I'm going to pump that towards my two liquid reservoirs that are going to contain super coolant. Next, I'm building pipes that are going to send oxygen and hydrogen to those two containers. In my electrolyzer, they're producing a lot of hydrogen, so I'm going to get the hydrogen from there. And as well, they're also producing oxygen, so pretty much they're my source for these two inputs. Once the pipes are created and the containers are sealed, I start pumping the oxygen and hydrogen into those two containers. Once the liquid reservoirs are about halfway full of supercoolant, I stop production in the molecular forge, and I enable these two reservoirs. So that supercoolant is going to start to be cooled and then be pumped through those two containers. Just to make a quick comment, I did put a few sensors inside the oxygen hydrogen containers. I don't think that I'll need them, but if I ever do decide that I want to have them, I figured it's easier to install it now rather than after it's filled with the material that I want to use. Anyway, the temperature settings do matter, so I'm going to put negative 200 for oxygen and negative 260 for hydrogen. I may change those values once I get a little bit closer to my achievement, but that'll get me started in the right path. So I'm making good progress in cooling down both oxygen and hydrogen. None of them have turned to liquid yet, so I'm going to view the status of this achievement. And I've noticed that the temperature that is reflected here does not reflect my pump. I'm wondering if pump doesn't count as a building. Oxygen was the first to turn into a liquid. At this point, I'm not turning my pump on, so it's just going to build up there for the time being. Alright, so I'm checking the temperatures of the pump with my achievement progress. And, and it's just not having it. A pump is not a building. I was in denial. Alright, game, what is a building? I'm just going to have to experiment and crack open that container. Hopefully not release too much hydrogen. Looks like I won't be able to experiment with that just yet, and that's because my thermal aqua tuners are taking damage. And that's because I forgot to cool off the top of the steam turbines. Once the steam turbine reaches 100 degrees or more, it stops operating, and I'm not getting any cooling effect in the steam underneath. Luckily, I've got some super coolant right underneath that I can connect and piping up to it to cool it down, but it's a race against the clock to get that up there before those machines completely break, which would force me to have to go inside, which I really don't want to have to do just now. So, oh my god, it is close. Oh, come on, please. Please. I think we've just have it. Oh, okay, good. Excellent. Alright, take that, game. You see, this is why I put random sensors in these little containers. I put a thermosensor there, and I didn't think I would need it, but now that I see what happened, what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect that with the AND gate to the liquid shutoff, and basically say if it gets too hot, let's say to 50 degrees or something, stop pumping supercoolant into them because it'll break if that happens. Now that I fixed the situation, that shouldn't... Nice. Oh crap. That's just gonna heat back up again. Ah, damn you, game. It makes sense. It's like minus 200 degrees. What was I thinking? Oh, okay. Gotta think. Okay, after a little bit of thinking, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add a little nub to the left of the steam turbines, put a thermosensor there, and detect if the temperature is above 20 degrees, and only put the supercoolant through if it's above 20 degrees. So finally, take that, game. This is exciting. I've now turned hydrogen into a liquid. This is just a view of the supercoolant going on and off the steam turbines as it's needed. During this whole process, I was quite paranoid about making the hydrogen too cold, because I figured as I approach absolute zero, or about negative 273 Celsius, my thermal aqua tuners might start taking damage from that, and they've already been through enough. But turns out that's not the case. So as you approach this absolute zero, it just starts maxing out that amount of coldness. So not a problem from the perspective of damaging those machines. Now I have it cold enough, I think I can start adding different buildings down in that hydrogen and see what qualifies as a building as far as this. Oh, great. Hydrogen just turned to solid. Ah, fun. Okay. I'm going to throw a bed down there thinking maybe that's a building. And if I can get that to be cooled off, it would be good. It's going to have a difficult time cooling off with solid material instead of liquid, which is unfortunate. But as more hydrogen gets added, it will eventually turn back to liquid and cooling off that bed. And we'll see if I can get this achievement. So the bed has reached under 6 degrees Kelvin. So let's see if this gives me my achievement. Come on, this is a building, right? Nope. Okay, come on, what is a building? Tell me. Alright, how about we try a research station? Hopefully that's a building game. And if this does work, I'll destroy it and seal this up. Luckily, because everything's so cold, I'm not losing much hydrogen in this system. Alright, so let's watch the temperature. This goes down really fast. It's calling achievement earned. Oh, that must be it. Come on. What else would it be? Not okay, but pretty cool. Thank you. Alright, research station will count as building. Cool that thing down if you want this achievement. Alright, so that was a fun one. But in addition to cooling that building, research station apparently, I also am producing liquid oxygen and hydrogen, which is awesome. I'm going to be able to use that to complete some of the other advanced achievements in this game, which I will do in an episode coming up. I hope to see you in one of those episodes, and until then, Jer signing out.